How we doing, chat? You seen you seen the you seen the damn title. It's crazy. He's still fighting this murder charge, man. I don't know how he's even been doing it this long and how he hasn't been tried for this is crazy. I have no clue. Alright. We're gonna listen to DJ Academics break it down.
So essentially what happened, right? Okay. I want to break this down that simple because we haven't covered everything. I want you guys to understand every fucking thing. All right. Give me 1 second. I got y'all. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I got y'all. It doesn't have the Portland stuff here. Okay, so I got to go to Law Crimes Trial. That's their trial page. The trial page has it all. Here's the hearing. No, that's from 4 days ago. Let's find the one for today. Oh my God, they have so much shit. Here we go. The shocking plea. Okay, we could probably go here. All right. So, chat, let me explain the Y&W conundrum. Okay? Y&W Melly. You guys all know him. He was arrested, I believe, late 2018, or maybe early 2019. I believe it was 2018. I'll confirm now. When was Y&W Melly arrested? He was arrested February 2018. The murder allegedly happened in 2018. To put this in perspective, I'm going to go over everything. And I just follow me sequentially. I'm going to make it really simple. Y&W Melly is accused of murdering his two close friends. His friends he sang on a hit song. He sang about a hit song called Butter Pecan. He says, I'm with Sack and Juvie. Okay. Y&W Sack Chaser, Y&W Juvie. Okay? They all were in a studio. They get in the car. In the front driver position was Y&W Bortland. In the right passenger, front passenger, and the back, what do you call it again? The back right passenger were Sack Chaser and Juvie. According to prosecutors, Melly was seated behind the driver. On video, he's captured getting into the car behind the driver. What police knew afterwards is that Bortland, the driver, showed up to the hospital with two dead bodies. The bodies of the guy in the right front seat and the back right seat. It became and was alleged by the police that Melly, at some point during the drive, took out a gun, shot the guy in the right passenger front seat, and shot the guy to the right of him. The bullets that went forward, it's almost alleged that these guys were either sleeping or something of the sort. It was a late night, they were leaving the studio. He even shot through the seat multiple times, and there was no defense wounds to be like, stop. You get me? It was that quick. Bang, 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 bang. That quick. When Bortland shows up to the hospital, Melly's not in the car. They started an investigation. The police asked what happened. There's actually gruesome video of them taking the bodies out of the car. By the way, by the time they got to the police station, it was corpses. They weren't fighting for their life. They were dead. The police asked him what happened. He says, and that's Bortland they asked. I'll show you Bortland on the screen. It's him in current day. He said, I was driving and someone pulled up and shot at us. Sounded like a drive-by. My friends got killed. The police obviously realized that now it's a crime scene. They quarantined the car. He's not hit. They asked him if he's hit. The doctors check him out real quick. He's not hit. They ask him, what happened? He said, we got shot at. The detectives, so the police is there. They call over detectives who's working that shift. They come over. Crime scene's hot. The car's the crime scene. They tape it around. And they said, where did you get shot? Because we can find more evidence. Who did this? He says, I don't know. He says, what do you know? He says, well, a car just pulled up and shot at us. The cop says, I know this is distraught. You're distraught, but we got to figure out some stuff. He seems calm enough to help them. And they say, will you show us where you got shot at? He says, yes. He got in the car, the cop car, front seat with the cop, and the cop drove to a location where he claimed the shooting happened. They mark the spot. They bring him back to the hospital. They bring him to the interrogation room. But they start canvassing the spot. They can't find anything that showed there was a shooting there. No broken glass. No spent shells. They can't find any evidence. That becomes suspicious. It also becomes suspicious with certain things with his demeanor. They figure something is up. What later happened is they realized a few things. When they asked where were y'all originating from, it became obvious, talking to multiple people and him, they came from a studio. They got the surveillance footage at a studio. 4 people entered like a SUV, but only 3 individuals showed up to the hospital. Where's the 4th? The 4th is Melly. They asked him about Melly. He was very, we dropped him off. Where? Somebody just picked him up. He was very vague. At some point, Melly had gotten out of the car. And it supposedly went home. Melly made some phone calls to a girlfriend, which allegedly the cops felt like they had confessed to the girlfriend that, so-and-so happened. Anyway, and I know I'm walking you through this really gingerly, but I have to explain why these charges are coming and why we're here. Because this has been 7 years in the making. This murder took place in 2018. It's 2025. This is 7 years after the fact. 6 years after the arrest of O.D.W. Melly, and there is no adjudication. Adjudication means that it is not determined by the court, or there's no disposition on the charges. Is it a guilty plea? Or not guilty plea, a guilty verdict? Is he acquitted? And there has been no plea until today that was taken by any of the defendants. So at first, they want Melly. They believe Melly is the shooter. They take the car in. They realize that there's spent shells in the car. I don't know if you guys know how weapons work. When you shoot a gun, a normal, unless it's like a revolver or something like that, or something that has a spent shell catcher, which usually is most likely an AR drinker or something like that, because you could attach it easier. It looks goofy on a handgun. When you shoot that thing, the bullet usually flies out to the left. Not only to the left, it usually flies out in close proximity of where the shooter would be. They found spent shells in the car. Now that defeated the entire theory that Borland told him that they got shot up by another car. If you got shot by another car, there wouldn't be spent shells in your car unless you fire back. They matched the ballistics, the bullets. They realized that it appears that the bullets that killed these men and the trajectory of how the bullets traveled, it went through the seats, went up to one of the guys, came out here. One of them, I think it went through his chin, whatever. It was determined that those bullets were fired in the car, not from someone else. Now, there were some other bullets. There was some bullets that was found in the car that was going into the car, but those, by a pathologist and also the coroner, those were not the fatal bullets. Actually, it was deemed that those bullets were fired after the guys were already dead. What did the cops take from this, the detectives? They said, someone committed murder in the car and then tried to stage a drive-by when the people were already dead. The cops later find where, based on GPS triangulation, because the great thing about this crime, everybody had cell phones in their pocket, including the dead people. So they were able to triangulate where that car went at certain points. So they have a location where the shooting or the drive-by took place. That's where Portland said. That turned out to not be true based on evidence. And then the car went and stopped at another place. And after that place, that's when it went to the hospital. Actually, it might have been two places, because one was a drop-off location for Melly, allegedly. And then the other place was the staging of the spot of the shooting, then the hospital. When they went to the place that they realized it was triangulated to, and they stayed there for a while, they found broken glass and debris that was consistent with that car of that color being shot. So it furthered their theory that someone killed their friends, or not killed their friends, but these guys got killed, and someone brought it to somewhere else to do a cover-up to claim it's a drive-by by shooting into a car where people are already dead. Okay. They have GPS, bullet fragments. From my recolletion, didn't find the gun, but they have everything else. They pretty much have a solid case on a forensic level, but they lack things on a fundamental level to make this case go. I'll tell you what they lack. I know this might sound like we're quoting the movies here, but in trying to prove murder, especially something that carries life, and in Florida State, premeditated murder, automatic life. Down south, usually premeditated murder, first degree, automatic life, or sometimes it carries the possibility of a death sentence. What that means is that a jury is usually going to look at not only if you did the killing, but they want more than that. Why would you do the killing? So this case lacked motive. To this day, we don't know why the hell would Melly want to kill his friends. We've heard several theories floated out there. Oh, they threatened his mom. Oh, they were going to do something to him because he was robbing them. We've heard so many theories, but none of it makes sense. So the prosecutor's been struggling with why would Melly sporadically, after leaving, didn't look like they were in a fight. Nobody fought. They're not arguing leaving the studio. Why the hell would Melly just randomly murder his two friends? Okay. So they lack a motive. Not only they lack a motive, it becomes a little blurry because everybody else seems to be non-cooperative, or is at least leaving an opening for an alibi for Melly to say, hey, it might sound suspect, but by the grace of God, randomly, while we were driving to some undisclosed place, I decided to get out of the car. So it's impossible for me to do the murder. I wasn't in the car. Also, the statement of the guy who brought the dead bodies is that I was in a drive-by. There is bullet entry wounds that came from the other side. So ballistics are pretty sure, but we could argue about that. But how do you put Melly there? You have no video of Melly. The driver isn't telling on Melly. Other people who noticed his behavior or interacted with him at first, afterwards, none of them said, oh, they interviewed the people in the house that were staying because Melly didn't get back to the house. No one said, oh, he took his clothes off and burned it. They were all kind of, sounds like a mystery, right? Anyway, they did a trial, and the trial came back as a mistrial. Apparently, there was one or more jurors who declined and refused to believe that Melly, beyond a reasonable doubt, killed his friends. Now, usually with a mistrial, on certain circumstances, and for certain type of charges or how heinous the crime is, they might not want to charge you again, or they might not want to try you again. Like, for example, I think if Diddy's thing came to a mistrial, I don't think they would do it again. Different DA, or not DA, but different U.S. attorney, different regime, they wouldn't do it again. They'd probably just, whatever, right? But they could still refile it at any time. So unless something else happens, whatever. The thing with Melly's case is that the idea of a man murdering his two friends sounds so heinous and so disgusting that Florida prosecutors, they've spent a lot of money, time, and energy, but they'll continue to spend more time and money and energy because they feel this is one of the most egregious crimes known to man. You cold-bloodedly murdered your friends sitting 2 feet from you, suspected that they were even sleeping while you put their lights out permanently. They want Melly fried. So they're looking to try him again. Now, what are the things that they're trying to do to try to make their case better this time? Because here's the thing, Melly got better lawyers. And since he's gotten the mistrial, you got to remember, certain people who testified then, they don't testify. There's a bunch of people who were on vacation for a long time. It's hard for the prosecutor this time around. Evidence, a lot of moving parts that on the first time, it's harder now. One of the people that didn't take part in his trial initially was this guy named O.D.W. Borland. The guy who would know what happened is the driver. Well, he's been elusive the entire time. They were trying to work with him, but he hasn't cracked it. He has not cracked. He's not, let me tell you who did it, none of that. They start putting a little pressure on him. They charge him with accessory for murder, hoping that that would scare him. He stood 10 toes down. No. Let's take it a try. Now, before we get into the plea, it's very important. And this is very important, because we're going to use common sense here, okay? It's very important to know that if you're charged with accessory to murder and the state can't even convict the guy of murder, they've tried once and they failed. It's impossible to convict you of accessory to murder if they can't even convict the murderer. So let me put it in perspective. O.D.W. Borland was not going to testify, held, or whatever. They let him out on bond one time, and then they revoked his bond, and they've had him locked up since. They've been getting frustrated because they need him. Now I'm going to be honest with you, and some of this is my opinion here, and I'll tell you what my opinion is, and I'll tell you what facts are. My opinion is they realized that the accessory for murder charge didn't scare them. They also put witness tampering on him a little bit later. So what they did was they hit him with 2 murder charges, homicide charges. They trumped up their theory of Melly killed his friends to you and Melly killed y'all friends. Now, it differs from their first story they were trying to present. They claim that he was not involved in the murder. He didn't know about it, but he did help to cover it. That's why they gave him accessory after the fact. Recently, they trumped it up to say he is just as culpable for murder, and they gave him 2 murder charges. Now, here's the thing with that. Remember what I said about Florida? If you get a murder charge or you get a conviction for first-degree murder, instant life. Ain't no better way to scare somebody than say, we got 3 or 4 chances to convict you of life imprisonment. We played this before, when the judge says what you're facing is life in prison without parole, plus life in prison without parole. So when you're facing 4 life sentence plus 75 years, your tone starts to change a little bit, because accessory for murder after the fact, I believe the statute could have him being sentenced up to 20 to 30 years. So with that, it's not a life sentence. When they threw the murders on there, that boy snapped to his senses real quick. And that boy turned from O.D.W. Borland in my opinion, to Sergio Wanatelli Kitchens. Now, I'm gonna have the plea agreement that's read out by the government, or the judge actually, play and not interject too much, because I did a decent job of leading up to this. But at times I might need to tell you why, because I did tweet out today and people are upset. I said this is a gunna plea. This is a gunna plea. This isn't a plea saying you have to tell on him, but this is a plea that you're going to have to provide all the details that they were missing to convict him. And that's why it's a gunna plea. What a gunna plea is you are charging us for a RICO. Now, y'all sat here and we went over the RICO for Sean Puff Daddy Combs. Now, I guess federal, this is state, but RICOs usually have about the same main components. What's a RICO? And I'm sorry I'm going this slow, but I want everybody to understand, even if you don't know nothing about it. So a RICO, what you have to prove, a RICO is a organizational conspiracy charge. What's a conspiracy charge? It's an agreement between at least two people to do a crime. So you need at least two people to do a crime. Both of them have to know that they're doing a crime. So if you hire a nigga if you get in the Uber and you go rob a bank, you don't get hit with a RICO. The Uber driver had no fucking idea. You and your mans and them, y'all get in a car and y'all go do a crime. That would be one of the predicate offenses for a RICO. But let me explain. So you need two more people agreeing to do a crime, and you need at least two crimes that show a pattern of criminal activity. Do you get what I'm saying? Perfect. So when I say a gunna plea, the hardest thing for the prosecutors to prove in the RICO case against Thug is that YSL was a enterprise. It was a criminal street gang. Okay? And that is a component as well. So when Gunna said YSL is a gang, and they label him in the hierarchy mode as second in command, it gives them a thing that they don't have to argue about all day, because they have a defendant saying YSL is a gang. Now, after that, they have many different crimes committed by other people. They have crimes, they had multiple crimes that they accused Jeffrey Williams of being associated with, but everybody else had crimes. Oh, he shot this cop, he did this. You just need two of those crimes. And then they charged 28 people. You only needed two people to be in agreement. Do you understand how that plea helps the overall mission to get a conviction? That's what I'm saying. So let's go back to Y.N.W. Borland. Why do I say he signed a gunna plea? Because Y.N.W. Melly, and I watched the case, we covered it. Y.N.W. Melly's case is that, number one, you guys have not done a job to prove that this is actually a homicide with, well, they have proved it's a homicide, but prove that this is a homicide with this person being the offender. So he's saying, how do we know that it was a murder? How do you know he got murdered? Number one, even though there's proof that dudes got shot, but he's saying that the proof of that has nothing to do with me. Also, the accessory after the fact plea confirms that Borland, that's kind of like almost like a sub part of a conspiracy, except you weren't with the conspiracy at first. You came in after the fact. What that proved is that they came in. Oh my God, my dog's hurt. What that proved is that Borland worked with someone after he acknowledged that a murder took place in trying to cover it up. You hear what I just said? When pleading to an accessory to murder after the fact, you have to acknowledge that the and you you assisted someone to cover the murder. Now, if Melly's statement is, how do we know there was a murder? And then secondly, how do we know who did the murder? Because they said it was a drive-by. How the hell would Bortland help anybody but the person he knows? How would he help the random guys who did a drive-by? That wouldn't make sense. So it would almost, in a way, it points the elbow. If you're helping someone after the fact, you're probably helping the suspect. That's what I'm saying. It's a gunner plea. His plea eliminates the things that they were having a hard time trying to prove, because his admission will help the story that they're trying to tell versus YNW Melly. Okay? Now, what we're used to is complete cooperation. So that's 6ix9ine. That's Cornelius Smith. That's Blue in Queso's situation. That's complete cooperation. However, these pleas, why I call it a gunner plea, is because a lot of what people think is either cooperation or whatever the case is essentially only when you sit on a stand and point people out. That's not the case. Not trying to throw Thug under the bus or use him as a whatever, but if Young Thug helped the cops when he said, he sells drugs every day, say the cops take that information. By the way, I want to keep this in mind. Diddy's house got raided because of something Lil Rod said. You say something in a police interrogation, you are basically, especially even more even when you're speaking to a federal officer, lying to a federal agent is a crime. It's a crime. Lying is a crime to a federal agent. But when you tell that to a police officer in an interrogation room, they could use your statement as probable cause to get a search warrant, to even possibly at a certain point get a Title III wiretap. They could get a lot of shit from, so when people say, oh no, I didn't tell the truth, I lied to the cop. But you could have given probable cause to a police officer to go kick somebody's door down, to go tap their phone, to go harass them or go look for shit, and maybe they find other shit. So basically, the idea of saying anything at all just isn't helpful. Are you guys following me here? So the point is, there's different levels of cooperation, but it's cooperating nonetheless. You might not be on the stand, but you might just be in the interrogation room saying, I'll tell you anything you want, take my number. It don't matter what it is. The police could use that information to go make an arrest or make a case. And I thought that's what the point with snitching was. I'll stop talking from here. Let's get into this Bortland plea, which I believe I'm calling, and I'm still going to call, a gunner plea. Check this out.
Back on the record, this is on the top of my page 5, State versus Cortland Henry, 19-1871 CM10A and 23-10643 CM10A. I've got Ms. Collins, Mr. Griffiths present for the state. I've got Mr. Haddad, Mr. Nascimento present for Mr. Henry, who likewise is present. So I had set this up here, the deadline as to whether or not Mr. Henry wanted to accept the state's offer or not. We're set to go to jury selection tomorrow morning. So Mr. Haddad or Mr. Nascimento will go forward to change the plea this afternoon.
Now, and I hate that I'm pausing, but I gotta explain to y'all because some people are overlooking. It was important to put all the cards on deck against Bortland and have his trial go before Melly. Why? I'll tell you why. Because number one, you want him to cooperate. So his trial was going to start tomorrow. Melly's trial kept getting postponed. They were going to have jury selection tomorrow. So this is why they came with this plea, and they said you have 24 hours to accept it. You got 24 hours. Somebody says I'm giving the wrong information. I'll get on the line with any of y'all about this. There is no wrong information to give on this. This is it's just strictly facts. There's some technicalities people are working off. The point what I'm trying to tell you, Yes, this cooperation doesn't look like the cooperation of Cornelius Smith,
Yeah.
but if you think that the prosecutors give out deals to not leverage a deal to make their other case, you're an idiot. Do you think they just like these guys? Like, you got to start using your brain here. If the prosecutor is giving this guy a deal, they're trying to leverage that deal to help their other case. Now, if you have a different definition of what you believe cooperation is, and it only entails someone sitting up there and saying, Melly did the murder, sure. And in some people's opinion, they believe that he won't have to speak about the murder. But you make it make sense.
And state the same terms that you discussed previously? Is there anything?
Calling it a Gunna plea is wrong information. I'm using Gunna's name just as a big name. I'm just saying that his plea, like, prosecutors aren't just giving out pleas in these complex cases to resolve them. They're giving these pleas out to advance their case. So how did they advance it with Gunna? They had Gunna. If they were just giving out a plea to just get Gunna out of there, why did they have Gunna say yes, ma'am? You got to answer that question. I get what y'all trying to. Y'all keep using the same talking points. A lot of Gunna fans who keep saying he was never going to take the stand. They never used it in court. They never this. Well, why? Well, just you answer this to me. If none of this mattered, why under oath did he say YSL is a gang and I know 2 or more individuals that committed crimes? Why? And those are 2 of the main elements you need for a RICO. Tell me why. If none of what he said or did mattered, why do it? So you tell me.